Hey, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Marduk's Muse. Today we're here, Mario here, Meten is here, because today Ozzy Osbourne passed away. And there's some just really juicy astrology in Ozzy Osbourne's astrology chart. Plus, you can see in the chart, why he passed away today. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that you would be able to tell Mario that he was going to die today ahead of time. But if you looked at the chart, you'd be like, oh, yeah, yeah, I can see why he died. What do you think? Do you think you can see when someone's going to die in an astrology chart?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Anyway, so today is about Ozzy Osbourne. It's Meten from Plutonic Planes, and it's Dorje from Heart Astrology, and we're presenting to you the life and death of Ozzy Osbourne based on astrology. Um, so I'm going to share my screen right now and just throw up the chart if it's good. And then, you can just kind of give me some of your insights, Meten, and I'll give you some of my insights based on the chart. Just like who was this soul? How did he live his life? Did he do his soul well? And did he do his passing well? Here we go. Um,
While
let's
I'm
see.
giving his Georgia, you think you could do a small favor for me? Well,
Sure. Yeah.
while I'm going over his life, be sure to interrupt me for those pivotal points.
Here we go. There. Okay. There we go. Ozzy Osbourne pulling down directed solar arc. That comes up later. Uh, but for right now, least aspected planet. I think that's something that you really jive on from. Seems like a lot of his planets are aspected, which is interesting to me because like when I see everything aspected, it's like, oh, this person's got a train going in their life. Everything is going to put everything else in motion, right? And I mean, he was crazy, crazy man, crazy life.
No, that was
Uh,
that was that was a song. That was a song, Georgia.
right, that was his first song, Crazy Train. Yeah, it's a famous song. So then, one thing that sticks out to me here is black. Black, a planet associated with black is Saturn. Saturn conjunct the midheaven. What else would you want for a metal head other than Saturn conjunct the midheaven? Like Saturn
Saturn in
represents
the fourth.
metal. What's that?
Go ahead. I just said Saturn in the fourth. I was joking.
Yeah. Saturn. Okay, sure. Yeah. Saturn on the midheaven. That's Saturn trine his Mars. Trine is Mars, trine is node, north node. Uh, just like to me, that speaks a lot of like, getting out that energy in a hard way. And I don't know. I mean, again, you're more of a metal person than me, more of a connoisseur of metal. Probably know a lot more about Ozzy Osbourne than me, but I wasn't Ozzy Osbourne like the inventor of metal practically.
I mean, we could say that. I don't have a problem agreeing with that. I mean, Black Sabbath was, out of the 70s or out of the 60s, they were calling all those rock bands like proto metal, like pre-metal. Now, it's important to note that it is in reflection that metalheads are saying that Black Sabbath was the first ever metal band. Black Sabbath has never acknowledged that they're a metal band. They just say like they're rock or hard rock or something. But it's important if you're a music connoisseur like myself or a musician, when you listen to the songs by Black Sabbath, they are a hybrid between rock and metal. Actually, it would be doom metal, because and it's because of Tony Iommi's guitar playing. But
Hmm.
even style of singing is so weird and provocative and doom laden. There's extreme anxiety in the songs. There's extreme crisis and panic and dread that's reflected in the lyrics and his tone. And then the song reaches a climax and then it goes into like these proto rock kind of rhythms that sometimes I don't like. But for the openings, the intros are just incredible. Like the first four albums of Black Sabbath, just incredible, metal and music and even lyrics. I mean, lyrically, Black Sabbath and Motorhead and other bands were very politically charged lyrics about war, death,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of war at the time, the Vietnam War, and about life, about the soul. I mean, just really. And Ozzy didn't necessarily he wasn't much of a lyricist. He was a performer. So he really practiced, his stage presence, his ability to sing he wasn't necessarily a complex singer either. He sung on beat, unlike Ronnie James Dio, who when he joined Black Sabbath, he had much greater vocal range and style and depth, and he would sing against the song structure. Ozzy couldn't really do that, but Ozzy's tone is so dramatic and so emotionally driven that to this day we have thousands and thousands of bands who create doom metal music, and the vocals are all imitating the style of Ozzy. You know what I mean? So the most influential singer ever in metal. I have my own doom metal band project I'm doing, and the whole style of the guitarist Iommi. I'm just like looking for darker and heavier and
Mhm.
dissonant all the time as Iommi created.
One thing that I notice immediately is that Neptune is square his sect ruler, the moon, in Capricorn. So whereas that moon in Capricorn, being ruled by and having a trine relationship to Saturn, has its own kind of like iron will, that Neptune square the moon is seeking to avoid definition, especially once you get that ascendant in Scorpio and the sun in Sag, then you have all of this like, don't define me, So I'm not surprised that he wasn't like, yeah, I created metal. Like there's some part of him did not want to be defined by other people's projections and definitions and what they would say he is, which I think plays out in the narrative of the biography of his entire life. Now also, why did he leave Black Sabbath? It's drug use, if I understand the story correctly.
Oh yeah, he was
And
like,
that is also that Neptune in the 12th square the his sect ruler, the moon. That's that, and but also it's that like that emotional tone that comes in and is given to him from that very same moon square Neptune. And I just like to put that out there because I feel like people kind of like they get into this consideration of like, oh, this person is like, a drug addict or whatever. Oftentimes the soul binds different things together within what that 12th house implication is. And so one, it made him a channel for, generations. Two, it like, did make it so that he was heavily into drugs and into traveling into recesses of the mind that are not accepted by most people, but definitely gave him voice, but also made him like challenging to define in the end. Like it's any way you try to define him as an oversimplification. So I see that in there. Also, I just wanted to note that the Mercury there in Sagittarius conjunct the Sun, coming from Chiron, moving towards the Sun, and that's the voice. That's that incredible voice, in my opinion. It's a voice that, like, on some level, is a healer. It's a healing voice in the deep shamanistic sense, which I think is part of why there is so much resonance that people had with him. But that voice was also squared Saturn and the midheaven. Oftentimes that's like a speech impediment. And I do know from like seeing videos of Ozzy later on in his life, like you hear the guy talking and you're like, what is going on with this guy? you know,
yeah.
but then when you give him the mic and you put him in front of the band, what channels through is just absolutely incredible. What do you see in the chart? What else do you see in the chart, Mario?
Well, I mean, I mean, there's something I don't want to share too much. I mean, it's something that I have in my chart too. But I'll point that out in a second. I want to point out that, as a Scorpio rising, we look at the ruling planet of his chart and we see there it's in the third house of
Mm,
communication. See
well
it's
done.
conjunct Jupiter and conjunct the moon. And you know, the ruler of your chart is, it's your expression. It's what your purpose is in your visceral kind of relation to reality. And so third house communicating to the masses, with grandiosity. I mean, Jupiter conjunct his will, his masculine power, what he does for a living, Mars, right there in the third communicating, and with such emotional depth and delivery. I mean, I
Hmm.
get bored of listening to the album. that he did with Jake E. Lee, the guitarist Jake E. Lee, and the songs like Shot in the Dark. And I think that's the 83 or 84 album. I mean, the way he sings those songs, oh my gosh, it's incredible. And
Mm,
it's also very melodic, the guitar playing of Jake E. Lee, it all combined. And it's like his to me, it was his greatest moment. People will disagree with me, they'll say, Randy Rhoads and Crazy Train, and Mr. Crowley. But
mm.
I think with Jake E. Lee, those songs from that album, Shot in the Dark, and I'm forgetting right now, I'll have to look it up. But what it is that, I mean, it's all there, just extreme emotional, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
dramatic delivery, and just an incredible singer that, I mean, I don't think there's any comparison in metal. I was saying that, aesthetically, and musically, Ronnie James Dio was a more developed vocalist,
Mm,
but he did not have the emotional impact, and the grandiose presence and presentation of Ozzy. You know what I mean? As a singer, it's incredible. So, one of the great, I mean, him, and I don't know if I'd, rank and say other great, I mean, obviously Jeff Tate of Queensryche is also exceptional, but for different reasons. Power and it's all in Capricorn too. Jupiter, Mars, and Moon in Capricorn there. And and that's what it is. Dorje, oh, he's back. Yeah, so I mean, it's all in Capricorn, man. So it's Saturnian. So he got better with time. I mean, I don't know. It's hard. I don't want to compare Ozzy with Black Sabbath. I mean, they were both amazing periods.
mhm.
Favorite song of Black Sabbath era is Megalomania, but that's because the other songs, you hear them so many times, you're just exhausted with them. At least for me. That particular song, though, by the Black Sabbath fourth album, Sabotage, is incredible. And then, as I said, um, I'm looking at a ranking now because that's the only thing that's shown up.
You,
And it's
you know, so they say that when a planet is conjunct in midheaven, it means that you will be a lord over those matters, right? And so that Saturn is conjunct the midheaven. And it just, it makes sense to me that then he's a lord over that kind of lore, that kind of presentation, that kind of music. And one thing Stephen Forrest says in his books on the elements is he's like, if you have a planet conjunct the midheaven, in this case it's Saturn, then that means you'll be affecting people that you do not meet, that you'll be affecting the world beyond your own immediate sphere. And so, like, I think you can really just see that. And again, that Saturn is trying the Mars, it's trying the moon. So then it is through his emotions and the raw energy of his voice that he affected so many people. Now, another thing, like, this is outside of the domain of the metal music, but from the evolutionary astrologer perspective, then you're going to look at that North Node in Taurus and that South Node in Scorpio, and you're going to go, well, his own personal psychological drama and his ability to create from that is what he comes in with into this world with, and what he profits off of, and what allows him profits off of, because that Mars is conjunct Jupiter, and the Jupiter rules the second, your profit, and the Mars rules that creativity, rules the work, also rules his ascendant, his persona. But then his growth is in the North Node in the seventh. And I read something the other day, which was just like, Sharon and him were like just like this bonded team. So I want to say that he did his chart well, not only in his music, but also in growing into that North Node and becoming this family person with his wife. And because that took on a greater, significance in 2002 when the Osbournes came out. And suddenly he has this hit, successful reality TV show, which, I mean, you could say it had a lot to do with his music, because, he had name recognition going into it. But then he has this reality TV show with his wife and his family. And, what is it again? He's the father, Saturn, conjunct the midheaven, ruling the fourth. So
mm,
he's got this like multi-layered way that's not, again, not definable, that he just moves in between these different worlds, affecting countless people. So I just wanted to put that out there. He did his nodes well in his life. And that's a mark of a strong or an amazing or an incredible soul, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, that that North Node in Taurus, that South Node in Scorpio, he came from hellacious experiences of the past, and even though he brought it back with him, he came in to Black Sabbath like going back to his hell, with drinking and drugging, but him with that, like you said, that North Node in the seventh, that partnership, in Taurus, making money, right? Being
Hmm.
successful. Capricorn, Jupiter, Capricorn, Mars, Capricorn, Moon. Plus, he's born year of the rat. Rats are very wise with finances, people, but they're wise with money. And so, things are coming out about he took ownership for everything he did. So he would pay, musicians after Black Sabbath and, take ownership of everything, which is a certain strategy in music, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
he makes all the money, So,
Well,
but
uh,
regardless, that's his purpose, that was his purpose.
yeah.
And
Can I get wild with you?
give it a try. Let's see.
Okay, so like, how many people buy into that Ozzy Osbourne was the reincarnation of Aleister Crowley? Crowley,
I don't know anyone who does. I don't.
because Aleister Crowley died in 1947. So we
Oh,
hit 1948, and here comes this like person born with South Node and Scorpio conjunct Venus. Now we all know Aleister Crowley's like diary, like he's a drug fiend, sex addict, right? And what more is symbolic of that as your last life than South Node conjunct Venus?
well, I'll tell you something else too. Usually the 12th house in esoteric astrology is symbolic of the last incarnation. And Crowley
Mm,
was a Libra.
no, are you serious?
Yes.
We're on it. Hey, people, follow our channels, Hard Astrology, as well as Marduk's Musing, because like these are the kind of insights you only get from us. So follow those three channels. We're going to be delivering them. That's amazing, Meten. I had no idea. And again, there's Neptune, spiritual teacher,
Yeah.
Libra, spiritual teacher, 12th
We,
house. So
we could look
we've
into
got
that
like these.
deeper with the
What's
degree.
that?
We could look at
Yeah.
that deeper with the degrees and other aspects of esoteric astrology to find the last incarnation.
Yeah, well, I'm not necessarily a fan of esoteric astrology. Not in that I'm not a fan. I am a fan. Hey, people, go out, figure out your systems, make them work, and allow them to bring you insight into the world you live in and the myths that you live by. Yeah, that's South Node, evolutionary astrology, esoteric astrology. We got two different systems kind of speaking to that as a possibility. But then again, like growing into that seventh house and more moving towards a sense of like, wearing that energy out, wearing that chaos magic out, wearing that turmoil out, and then just finding peace in his relationship, in his family, and in his home. So that's crazy. He wrote a song called Aleister Crowley,
Mr. Crowley. Yeah, he
Mr.
has a song
Crowley.
called Mr. Crowley. Yes.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Yeah.
Go
What's
ahead.
that?
No, you go ahead.
No, what else do you see? What else like really pops up
Um,
to you here? I mean, because we're celebrating his life and then we'll go into his death.
well, I was looking at the LAP and I was looking to see if he has an LEP. And like you said initially, there's no LAP. Like you kind of had that intuition. You were like, it looks like everything's aspected in the chart.
Oh
And you're
yeah,
right
yep,
on. There's no LAP. Mm-mm.
yeah. Now I'd like to throw up a couple really interesting things that happened here with this chart that showed the power of solar arc directions. And
Oh,
so first, I'm going to go over here to 1969. So that's the year that Black Sabbath forms with him as the lead singer. And so this is July. I'm not going to get like exactly down to the details, but I do want to show that his ascendant then conjuncts the sun. Now, oftentimes the sun can represent fame, especially ruling the 10th house by whole sign. So the ascendant comes here and it's applying in its conjunction. This year it's conjuncting the sun, and he becomes this lead singer, this voice, this leader. Now, I think if I understood you correctly, maybe he was not the leader of the band per se, more the figurehead or the main face that those who don't dive too into it would remember of the band. But that solar arc ascendant, directed ascendant conjuncts the sun here. Likewise, then Neptune conjuncts the nodes. It's just past conjuncting the nodes, and I feel like that's so. There's some kind of like fulfillment of of a previous lifetime's movement as from being a spiritual teacher into being a radically transformative social identity that's occurring, that's arising there. Then, the next thing I wanted to do really quickly was hop over to 1979 because that's the year he leaves Black Sabbath, and if I understand it right, it is because of substance use or drug use. But then at this point, then we have solar arc directed Venus conjunct his Sun. Right. And so what's Venus rule in the chart? It rules the 12th house of drug use, conjunct his Sun. So it becomes such a big deal that like it affects that career. It affects that place of uh, profession. It affects what he's doing in the world, transforms that. At the exact same time, solar arc directed Uranus. Now, Uranus is really plays a big, huge part in this chart. Solar arc directed Uranus moves into the 10th house, disrupting his career, pushing him to be an individual rather than a band.
Wow. And they all
So
kicked him out too. It wasn't like he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go have my solo band." They fucking kicked him out.
yeah, Uranus will do
Okay.
that, man. Uranus will do that. But then we get into this. This is really great. I think this is so juicy. We get into 1980, right? We get into 1980, and where is it? Okay, so Chiron. Now, Jeannie Picasso, brilliant astrologer, one of the leaders of Kepler, one of the leaders of OPA, she says that she feels like Chiron is about coming into your own empowerment. And so we hit 1980, 1981, and he launches his solo album as that Chiron solar arc directs to Jupiter, ruler of his fifth house, ruler of his own creativity, ruler of his second. And so I see that movement where Crazy Train is dropped as him being like, this is my creation. This is my creativity. And you guys can diss on my soul path, but I am becoming a creative master of it. Then we get over here.
Oh, by the way, that was 1980, and that was Blizzard of Oz. That
Blizzard
was
of Oz,
the
that's
first
right.
album.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, Blizzard of Oz.
Oh no, even the
The
band was called that, I think. Originally, it was intending to be called Blizzard of Oz. Yeah.
band was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but instead they just titled it Blizzard of Oz. And it had Randy Rhoads, and it had the all-time anthem that you're talking about, Crazy Train, was on it, as well as Suicide Solution and Mr. Crowley.
Now, what did the band end up being called?
I think it was just ended up being called his name, Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, there you go. So again, that Chiron conjunct that Jupiter. This is me. This is my creativity. He's coming out and he's pushing that this is me, my creativity. Then solar arc directed again. This is just really, I mean, just fascinating. So we hit yeah, secondary progressed. Generate, and then we're going to go back here to on the secondary progressed chart. We're going to go back to 1982, and what happens here? Then we have right secondary progressed Mercury ruling here the eighth house of death becomes in conjunct with Uranus in the eighth house of death, and Randy Rhoads dies. Yeah, in this plane crash, he loses. He doesn't die. It's in conjunct. It misses him. Randy Rose dies. That eighth house is activated. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we go to today, when he left us, when he left our world, then you're going to see that Uranus just entered the eighth house. This Uranus being in the eighth house by whole sign natally is very strong for his eighth house. So then he dies when Uranus enters the eighth house. Ozzy Osbourne passes away um, by whole sign. Now, what's really interesting to me with this, Meten, is that then if I go and select edit chart, if I go here and I switch this to like, let's say Placidus, I don't care. I mean, you quadrant-based house people, you can play around with whatever charts you want to make anything work. Then we have then Jupiter and the moon are in his eighth house when he dies. The moon is opposing Jupiter when he dies in the eighth house, and Jupiter is opposing the moon when he dies in the eighth house. So then the eighth house, which rules death, which means death, becomes prevalent both in quadrant-based houses and whole sign houses at the time of his death. So I thought you'd find that interesting.
That's fascinating because we don't know much, right? We just know that we suspect that it was death by suicide solution, like his song.
I might speculate on that. He did have Parkinson's, right?
Mm.
And I know that in his final concert, he was like, "Hey, my body's collapsing. I want to do this because my body won't keep going." So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into one more thing I want to throw up. I think here, and that is us. So he comes down with Parkinson's when his secondary progressive moon conjuncts Pluto.
Oh, wow.
And this is interesting because it does this at the degree that he dies on. If we go now, oh no, sorry.
Is that secondary progress moon conjuncting secondary progress moon Pluto or natal Pluto or transit Pluto?
So his secondary progressed moon
Oh, that's
conjuncted
natal.
natal Pluto when he comes down with Parkinson's. And this is very significant because if we remove this, then we see that Mercury stations on his, again, Mercury, the ruler of the eighth house of death, stations on his Pluto the week he dies. And as it's doing so, because this Pluto is square the ascendant. So then it squares his ascendant, and it's the ruler of death, and it's stationing on Pluto, where the moon contracted the illness he died from when he contacted it, when he was diagnosed with it.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to look at the human design
Yeah,
and
I'll take a quick
give
peek
us a
since
rundown? Okay. So then all I have to do here is come to the.
Okay, you guys, we were fixing some stuff, some Mercury retro going on. And this is over here, I enlarged it a little. This is Ozzy's natal chart. Not a surprise, reckless manifesting generator with let's see what he got, the 2838, which is the Scorpio testing reality channel. Then he's got the 1648, the connection to the throat, and that channel's master of skills, great depths, great talent scout too, can pick the correct guitarist. And then his behaviors 10, line 6, which is behavior that can be really off the top of the roof, like really radical behavior. Anyway, he's an MG, willpower, has his own sense of direction, open emotional, very vulnerable, completely open. So very interesting. So very much gets high off the crowd. And you see that with him, he loves, he gets so excited when he performs, and open throat, open G center, I'm sorry, open head and open G center. So very inspired. Let's see how aware he is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 overlays. Yeah, pretty aware guy. I didn't think such. Pretty aware, doesn't miss too much. Very aware being, even though, for his history, but South Node and Scorpio. And yeah, that's all. Oh yeah, great businessman too with that 2644, although arguably his wife is really the brains behind the mission. And then 4629 mystical experiences, being at the right place at the right time. A lot of channels.
Yeah. Is there a connection there that you can see between him and his wife in the channels, like how he relied on her, or does human design reveal that kind of information?
The nodes are just on the edge of Kate 2343. They're not quite there. So that's interesting. Yes, because the north nodes are in 27, and 27 right here is a tribal channel of needing touch and partnership and connection. The
Ah.
7 is neediness, and the 50 is givingness. So it's like a tribal need to touch to have a secure partner. So yeah, and that's where his nodes are. So that's right on.
Yeah. What's the 1645? Is that coming out of the throat chakra?
The 1648 here? Yeah, that
Yeah.
one that's what makes him a manifesting generator, that and the defined sacral.
Hmm.
Uh yeah, that's the ability to 16 is to like bring out one's talents or bring out other
Hmm.
people's talents or be a talent scout. And then the 48 is like depths, talents that can be brought out into the
Depth
public.
of talent. Yeah. So is this the throat chakra? Am I reading that right? Or is it like doesn't quite work like that?
Yeah, no,
I mean, visually,
throat
that's what I
center,
want to
throat
think.
center in human design, but yeah, like a throat chakra, yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So then that's that ability to manifest through voice is how I want to interpret that. Um, generate, manifest and generate through voice, but definitely like also powerful sacral heart connection, it looks like to me. Am I reading that right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Sacral heart, ego, willpower,
Hmm.
sense of direction. Oh yeah, all that. But he
Hmm.
wasn't very strong. He was very level. He just got
Hmm.
amped up by people. But when he was by himself, very level.
That would be that emotional. So do you think the drug use was partly like how he worked with the emotionality, like being open to everybody and being a channel to everybody's emotions?
I get that when he wasn't, when he was by himself, he wasn't wanting to be social. I
Yeah,
get that he wanted to stay away from people's emotions. But when he was performing, he probably wanted to amp it up to the extreme,
I see.
you
I
know.
see.
Feel
Opening up that shamanistic kind of performative arts there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. Anything in his human design that showed that prolific drug use?
Yeah, the 2838, the need to take risks, the
Uh-huh.
struggle. Sometimes it's called the channel struggle. And there could be a need to like really take calculated or uncalculated risk in life and to test reality. So I'm sure you almost died a couple of times, you know what I mean? Pushing, the envelope, risking, taking great risks. That's
Right.
the 2838. The 28
Yeah,
is Scorpio.
I see.
That's the south node. That's the south node.
Cool. Cool.
Let's look at the transits. So
Mm.
usually death in human design, here are the transits for today. And we see that the 52 is activated and the 60. I'm going to show you why that's significant. So in his own chart, usually death occurs, the Bardo state begins here in the G center,
Hmm.
magnetic monopole and the crystals making their way out of the body, the design and personality crystal, if I'm remembering correctly. And then they would go down the 4629, or I think usually it's a 214 though. And then it goes down and then the 952. It goes down from the G center to the sacral to the root, I think, and out of the body. So all those channels are activated, but I think
Mm.
but I don't know about the veracity of this because it's not always evident as I've looked at it that that specific channels are activated during death. Um, I remember Ross saying it was the 214 and the 360. These are still activations that turn on these centers, but you know, I'm just saying that's just my observation that at least there's an energy line down and out of the body, you know?
Hmm.
Sure, those
Yeah.
were
I find the same is true for, just traditional astrology. You can always go back and find something that signifies it, but it's not the same for every person. You can't just say like, oh, this aspect is going to create it. So there you go. You got Aleister Crowley's Venus conjunct Ozzy Osbourne's Jupiter.
wow.
You've got Ozzy Osbourne's North and South Node conjunct Crowley's Neptune. And then you have his Ozzy Osbourne's Pluto applying in conjunction to um, Ozzy Osbourne, Crowley's Uranus. So I'd say at the very least here, you kind of have this kind of, oh, you got part of fortune, the material manifestation conjunct Crowley's sun. So you have this like, you have, he's a material manifestation of Crowley's being. So, even if it's not like direct reincarnation, although I wouldn't doubt it. There is this quality of a continuation of the mythology and the story in a different way, and I would say, I mean, outside of the esoteric schools like Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, that Osbourne probably did more to move forward the acceptance of a cult pagan mindset in relationship to anti-Christian theology, or not Christian theology, but the acceptance of Lucifer, or the idea that Lucifer was a light bringer and not just quote unquote a bad thing, more than anybody since Crowley, based on being the voice of a type of music and communication and art style that embraced the themes of the shadow rather than rejected them, and said those are a path to emotional, psychological health and wholeness if you're just willing to look at that rather than, create a dualistic framework whereby you avoid part of what your soul's process is.
Beautifully said. I don't even have nothing to add. I mean, Crowley's, his whole system was a hodgepodge of animism, spiritism, paganism. It was a whole mix-up, right? And
Mm,
Ozzy as a singer and as, lyrics for his bands, which he didn't write all of them, but they were a general kind of foray into the shadow, into representation of those sides of society that were, being he was a part of the whole satanic scare. What was it called in the 90s? The Satanic Panic, right? After him for that song
right.
Suicide. And and his imagery, his iconography has always been dark side, very much so, right? And so yeah, I'd say so. And yet at the same time, very, very appealing to the masses, I mean, he had that song Coming Home on his
Hmm.
latest albums, which was, anthemic in his recent concert, the concert in England, right? That big Black Sabbath concert that was just a week or two ago. I think they even had it out here where you could go see the large video, in a crowd or something, but I don't
Yep,
want
yep, yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, because like he was a voice for generations,
to.
and if he was Crowley, irresponsible mythology, but hey, whatever. I look forward to the next incarnation because that soul's obviously doing something.
Many talked about how in the concert when he sang the song Coming Home that many people just started crying.
Yeah,
Everyone could feel that, in a sense he was going home, that it
yeah,
was his last concert, right?
yep, yep,
And so of course that's who he is. So it means his last foray into life, that his death is soon, So not much of a surprise, sadly,
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, thank you. This has been Marduk's Muse, and you can subscribe to Meten's channel, Plutonic Planes, or my channel, Hard Astrology, or to the Marduk's Muse channel. All three channels are available. So if you like this content, if you like exploring these ideas, astrology, human design, and the esoteric, subscribe and appreciate the conversation, Meten. They're always absolutely fantastic.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you.